Welcome back to the Alternate History channel, where we peel back the layers of what we know to reveal the possibilities of what might have been. Today, we're turning the pages back to the 15th century, to a pivotal moment in French history, the execution of Joan of Arc. Imagine a timeline where the Maid of Orleans dodges the flames of execution and continues her campaign. How would her continued presence shape the 100 Years' War, influence French royalty, and impact European history? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to journey with us through history's most intriguing what-ifs. Now let's unveil a history where Joan of Arc's valorous spirit fights on. In the lush, war-torn valleys of France, amidst the relentless 100 Years' War, a figure emerged who was destined to become a symbol of national identity and a harbinger of victory. She was a simple peasant girl, scarcely 17, named Joan of Arc, known to her countrymen as La Pucelle, the Maid of Orleans. Her humble beginnings in the village of Domremy belied the indelible mark she would leave on history. At an age when most young women of her time were preoccupied with modest domestic life, Joan claimed divine guidance, asserting that voices of saints had instructed her to secure the throne for Charles VII and to liberate France from English domination. Her conviction and purity of purpose convinced the skeptical court of Charles, and by 1429 she was vested with armour and a banner, leading the army into the siege of Orleans. Her presence inspired a beleaguered French force to a momentous victory, a turning point in the war that would set the stage for the coronation of Charles VII. Joan's series of swift, audacious military maneuvers, often in the face of overwhelming odds, fortified her reputation as a prodigious leader. She became a living myth, a blend of warrior, mystic, and the national daughter of France. However, her string of victories would come to an abrupt halt at the siege of Compiègne, where she was captured by the Burgundian faction, a French group allied with the English. At just 19 years old, Joan faced an ecclesiastical court in Rouen, charged with a litany of offences against the English crown and the church. Her trial was a mire of legal and theological quagmires, and in the end, she was condemned to be burned at the stake. However, let us envisage an alternate scenario where King Charles VII, emboldened by the spirit Joan had awakened in France, asserts a stronger stance. The king, recognizing the value of Joan not just as a military leader but as a symbol of French sovereignty and divine right, intervenes with unprecedented determination. This Charles VII is not the indecisive monarch history remembers. He is decisive, rallying his allies, exhausting his coffers, and leveraging his newfound influence to negotiate for Joan's release. Through a confluence of political maneuvering, hefty ransoms, and perhaps the influence of Joan's own celestial reputation, she is freed from her captors. This Joan of Arc, unmarred by flames, continues to stand as the figurehead of the French resistance. Her presence on the battlefield and in the courts of power alters the course of the 100 Years' War, forging a different France from the fires of war. With Joan of Arc's execution averted, the year is 1431, and a palpable shift sweeps through the Kingdom of France. The flames that were to consume her instead forge an even stronger bond between her and King Charles VII. Her unwavering conviction, seen as a sign of divine favour, not only reaffirms Charles's claim to the throne, but also rekindles the spirit of the Valois line. Nobles who had previously hedged their bets now rally to the banner of the king they perceive as chosen by God, thanks to Joan's seemingly miraculous reprieve. As Joan continues to accompany the French armies, her presence at sieges and on the battlefields becomes more than symbolic. She hones her leadership skills, turning the tide in several key confrontations that would have otherwise been defeats. The English, witnessing her continued victories, begin to struggle with a mix of superstition and diminishing morale. The once indomitable force that had been pressing into French territory now stumbles, burdened by doubt and the unshakable resolve of the French resistance. This period, which might have seen a weakening of the French resolve, instead witnesses a burgeoning national identity, one tightly woven with the fabric of the legendary Maid of Orleans. Her influence stretches beyond the mud and blood of the battlefields. She enters the political sphere, advocating for the reforms she believes will strengthen the kingdom. Her voice, once only heard amidst the clashing of swords, now finds its way into the drafting of policies and the governance of the people. Furthermore, the 100 Years' War, which had drained both England and France, takes a distinct turn. With Joan's guiding hand, French victories come swifter, and the war that would have lasted until 1453 sees a potential end much sooner. This change in the war's duration does not just affect military campaigns, it also alters the course of cultural and economic recovery. The early cessation of hostilities allows for a renaissance of French culture in the latter half of the 15th century, an era of artistic, scientific and intellectual growth spurred on by the security and stability that Joan helped to secure. Joan's effect resonates within the church as well. The legitimacy of her visions, once a matter of fiery debate, becomes an ecclesiastical endorsement that reinforces the church's influence within France. Yet Joan's own brand of piety and spirituality begins to challenge the orthodoxy, inspiring a movement towards a more personal and nationalistic form of religious expression. On the home front, the Burgundian alliance with England begins to crack. Duke Philip the Good, facing increased pressure from his own vassals and swayed by the changing winds of power, finds his loyalty to the English crown a diminishing asset. A renegotiation of alliances looms, and with it, the potential for a dramatically different balance of power within Europe. The survival of Joan of Arc, the luminous Maid of Orléans, thus becomes the linchpin in an accelerated French resurgence, the consequences of which radiate outwards, reshaping the political and cultural landscape of Europe. Her name, once destined to be a footnote in the annals of a war-torn kingdom, is now etched at the heart of a reinvigorated nation, her life continuing to mould the very essence of what it means to be French. As the decades roll on, past the pivotal year of 1431, the ripples of Joan of Arc's survival spread across the fabric of European history. By thwarting her execution, King Charles VII not only solidified his reign, but also gave rise to a living legend whose impact would shape the course of French nationalism and identity for centuries to come. Joan's ongoing military campaigns deliver a more decisive and earlier victory for France in the Hundred Years' War. The conclusion of this prolonged conflict frees resources and attention for the kingdom, allowing a focus on domestic stability and the flourishing of the arts and sciences. France's earlier transition to peace fosters a renaissance of thought and creativity, possibly rivaling that of Italy's. In the latter half of the 15th century, a Joan-inspired cultural revival blooms. Her story, embroidered with the threads of victory, faith, and nationalism, becomes a tapestry of inspiration for artists, poets, and philosophers. This movement doesn't just beautify the halls of the French elite, it permeates through to the common people, entwining Joan's image with the very notion of French sovereignty and spirit. Joan's continued advocacy for reform shapes the monarchy's policies. Her peasant roots and empathetic leadership style prompt more equitable land reforms, which improve the lot of the common French folk and reduce the severity of feudal oppression. With these social changes, France might see an earlier emergence of proto-democratic ideas, potentially affecting the timeline and nature of future revolutions. The Catholic Church, having embraced Joan as a divine instrument, finds itself at a crossroads. Joan's mystic charisma and popular appeal challenge the established hierarchy, leading to a new form of Christianity in France that emphasizes personal piety over institutional doctrine. This could possibly delay or even prevent the spread of Protestantism into France, changing the religious map of Europe. Internationally, an empowered and revitalized France takes a more dominant role in European politics. The balance of power shifts, with France taking a leading role in the shaping of continental policies, influencing everything from the Italian wars to the eventual division of the New World among the European powers. In England, the earlier loss to France undermines the War of the Roses, altering its course and aftermath. A weakened English nobility could result in a stronger central monarchy sooner, and perhaps a different approach to dealing with the rising question of the Tudors. As for Joan herself, assuming she lived to a natural old age, her later years would have been marked by her growing influence in both secular and religious realms. Perhaps she would retire as a celebrated national hero, her legend forever altering the role of women in French society and setting a precedent for female leadership that would echo through to the modern era. By the time of her natural death, Joan of Arc would be more than a saint and hero. She would stand as a symbol of French resilience and as a mother figure of the nation, her mythos shaping French consciousness, identity and destiny far into the future. The Maid of Orleans, in living out her full potential, would thus weave a history where France might lead Europe through the turbulent waters of the Renaissance, Reformation, and beyond, into an age of enlightenment that bears her indelible mark. As we conclude our journey through a world where Joan of Arc's indomitable spirit was not extinguished at the stake, we're left to ponder the profound ripples one life can make through the annals of history. Her survival and potential influence would not only have shaped the course of the 100 Years' War, but could have also left a lasting impact on the fabric of European political and cultural landscapes. We've explored how her continued military campaigns and potential political ascendancy could have rewritten the destiny of France and its neighbours. Joan of Arc, as a figure of inspiration and national identity, might have propelled France to earlier unity and strength. While history cannot be rewritten, our imaginations can take flight on the wings of these historical what-ifs. Remember to share your thoughts on this alternate scenario in the comments below, and to subscribe for more thought-provoking explorations into the histories that never were. Until next time, keep wondering, what if?